June 1967. In just 6 days, the entire balance of power in the Middle East shifted forever. Israel, surrounded by hostile nations, launched a lightning-fast military campaign that would reshape the region. How did Israel defeat multiple Arab nations in less than a week? What led to this explosive conflict, and what were its lasting consequences? Stay with us as we uncover the events of the Six-Day War, one of the most decisive conflicts in modern history. Enjoying the journey through history? Make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community of history enthusiasts. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell us what you think, share your favorite historical insights, or suggest a topic you'd love to see us explore. Background: tensions in the Middle East. By the mid-1960s, tensions between Israel and its Arab neighbors, Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, were at an all-time high. The roots of this conflict stretched back decades, fueled by territorial disputes, political rivalries, and deep-seated animosities. One of the primary causes of hostilities was the outcome of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, also known as Israel's War of Independence. When Israel declared statehood in 1948, surrounding Arab nations invaded, attempting to crush the newly formed Jewish state. Although Israel emerged victorious, the war left lingering bitterness among the Arab states, particularly Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, who viewed Israel as an illegitimate entity. The 1956 Suez Crisis further escalated tensions. When Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal, Israel, Britain, and France launched a joint military intervention. While Israel successfully occupied the Sinai Peninsula, international pressure forced them to withdraw, leaving behind unresolved grievances. Nasser, now seen as a hero in the Arab world, strengthened his resolve to eliminate Israel, aligning Egypt with the Soviet Union and expanding its military capabilities. Another major flashpoint was Arab nationalism, driven by Nasser's pan-Arab ideology. He sought to unite the Arab world under a single banner, with the destruction of Israel as a central objective. This ideology found support in Syria and Jordan, both of whom increased military cooperation with Egypt to form a unified front against Israel. The creation of the United Arab Command, UAC, in 1964, marked a significant step toward military coordination among these nations. Adding to the volatility were constant border skirmishes between Israel and its neighbors. In particular, clashes between Israel and Syria over the Golan Heights became increasingly aggressive. Syrian forces used the high ground to shell Israeli settlements, prompting retaliatory strikes. At the same time, Palestinian guerrilla groups, such as Fatah and the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, launched raids into Israeli territory from bases in Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, triggering further Israeli responses. By 1967, a sense of inevitability surrounded the conflict. In May, Egypt took a bold step by expelling United Nations peacekeeping forces from the Sinai Peninsula. This move signaled Egypt's preparation for war as it positioned its troops along Israel's southern border. Days later, Nasser announced the closure of the Straits of Tiran, blocking Israeli access to the Red Sea. A move Israel considered an act of war due to its heavy reliance on maritime trade. In response to Egypt's escalating actions, Israel faced a critical decision: wait for an inevitable attack or strike first. Given the encirclement by hostile forces and the growing threat posed by the Arab military alliance, Israeli leaders decided they could not afford to wait for their enemies to make the first move. With war now seemingly unavoidable, Israel prepared for what would become one of the most extraordinary military campaigns in modern history. Israel's preemptive strike, Operation Focus, June 5, 1967. At dawn on June 5, 1967, Israel launched Operation Focus, a meticulously planned preemptive airstrike that would go down as one of the most successful air campaigns in military history. The operation was designed to cripple the air forces of Egypt, Syria, and Jordan before they could take off, ensuring Israeli air superiority for the rest of the war. Israel's strategy was to strike first, eliminating the overwhelming numerical advantage that the Arab air forces had over the Israeli Air Force, IAF. Israeli intelligence had gathered precise details about Arab air bases, including aircraft locations and flight schedules. Using this intelligence, Israeli warplanes took off in complete radio silence, flying low over the Mediterranean to avoid detection by enemy radar. Within the first few hours, over 90% of Egypt's air force was destroyed while still grounded. The surprise attack targeted runways, aircraft hangars, and command centers, rendering Egypt's military response ineffective. Egyptian pilots had no time to react as Israeli jets systematically bombed airstrips, making it impossible for remaining planes to take off. In just one day, Egypt lost nearly 300 aircraft, including advanced MiG fighters provided by the Soviet Union. Following the devastation of the Egyptian Air Force, Israel quickly turned its focus to Syria and Jordan. The Syrian Air Force was similarly crippled, with dozens of aircraft obliterated within hours. Jordan, initially hesitant to enter the war, made the fateful decision to attack West Jerusalem after hearing false Egyptian reports of victory. In response, Israeli warplanes struck Jordanian air bases, effectively grounding their air force and leaving Jordan vulnerable. By the end of the first day of battle, Operation Focus had eliminated nearly 450 Arab aircraft, ensuring that Israel had complete control of the skies. This gave Israeli ground forces the freedom to launch coordinated attacks without fear of enemy airstrikes, allowing them to dominate the battlefield with speed and precision. The success of Operation Focus was unprecedented. Israel had neutralized its enemy's ability to wage air warfare, shifting the balance of power drastically in its favor. With the Arab air forces decimated, the stage was set for Israel's rapid ground offensive, which would unfold across three key fronts in the days to come. The lightning ground offensive. With air superiority secured, Israel launched a three-front ground assault. Sinai Peninsula, the battle against Egypt. Israeli forces pushed deep into the Sinai Peninsula, quickly defeating Egyptian defenses. Within 4 days, Israeli troops had reached the Suez Canal, forcing Egypt into full retreat. President Nasser, humiliated, falsely reported victories to the Arab world to maintain morale. The West Bank. Confrontation with Jordan. Despite Israeli warnings to stay out of the war, Jordan attacked West Jerusalem. In response, Israel launched a swift counterattack, capturing East Jerusalem and the West Bank within 2 days. The victory was a turning point, giving Israel control over the city's holy sites, including the Western Wall and the Temple Mount. The Golan Heights, Syrian resistance. On June 9th, Israel turned its focus to Syria's fortified positions in the Golan Heights. After fierce battles, Israeli forces captured the region by June 10th, securing high ground that would serve as a crucial defensive buffer. The aftermath and consequences. By June 10, 1967, the war had ended, but its impact on the Middle East would be felt for decades. Israel had achieved a stunning victory, but the consequences of the war extended far beyond the battlefield. The rapid territorial changes, diplomatic shifts, and geopolitical tensions that emerged in the aftermath of the war reshaped the region in ways that continue to influence conflicts today. Territorial expansion and occupation. Israel's victory resulted in the capture of vast territories, the Sinai Peninsula and Gaza Strip from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. This territorial expansion tripled the size of Israel overnight, drastically altering its strategic position. The newly occupied territories provided Israel with greater security buffers, but also introduced new governance challenges, as large Palestinian populations now fell under Israeli control. The occupation of these regions led to increased tensions and resistance, particularly in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, where Palestinian populations strongly opposed Israeli rule. Over time, these areas became flashpoints for ongoing conflicts, shaping the modern Israeli-Palestinian struggle. The Israeli government would have to contend with the difficult question of whether to annex the territories, return them in exchange for peace, or establish a different form of governance. Arab world humiliation and the rise of pan-Arab nationalism. The war was a devastating defeat for the Arab world. Egypt, Syria, and Jordan had suffered massive military and territorial losses, leading to national humiliation. The failure to defeat Israel shook the confidence of Arab leaders, particularly Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser, who had positioned himself as the champion of Arab nationalism. His credibility was severely damaged, though he attempted to maintain power by taking responsibility for the loss and doubling down on efforts to modernize the Egyptian military. The Arab League, in response to the war, convened in Khartoum in August 1967, where they famously issued the Three No's resolution: no peace with Israel, no recognition of Israel, and no negotiations with Israel. This declaration ensured that diplomatic relations between Israel and the Arab states remained frozen for years, fostering continued hostilities. Rise of Palestinian nationalism and the PLO. One of the most significant consequences of the war was the rise of Palestinian nationalism. With the loss of the West Bank and Gaza, many Palestinians found themselves under direct Israeli control, fueling a renewed push for self-determination. The Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, which had been founded in 1964, gained prominence in the wake of the war, becoming the leading political and military force advocating for Palestinian statehood. The war radicalized many Palestinians, leading to an increase in armed resistance and the rise of militant groups. Over the following years, Palestinian guerrilla fighters, known as Fedayeen, launched attacks on Israeli targets from neighboring Arab countries, escalating hostilities. This laid the groundwork for future conflicts, including the First Intifada in 1987 and the continued struggle over the fate of the Palestinian territories, superpower involvement, and the Cold War impact. The Six-Day War intensified Cold War tensions as the United States and the Soviet Union became more deeply involved in Middle Eastern affairs. The United States emerged as Israel's primary ally, increasing military and economic aid in the years following the war. The Soviet Union, in contrast, doubled down on its support for Arab states, providing military assistance to Egypt and Syria in preparation for future conflicts. This global involvement further polarized the region, as Middle Eastern conflicts became proxy battles between the two superpowers. The war also pushed the Arab states closer to the Soviet bloc, increasing arms shipments and military alliances that would play a role in the Yom Kippur War of 1973, UN Resolution 242, and attempts at diplomacy. In November 1967, the United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 242, which called for 1. Israeli withdrawal from territories occupied during the war. 2. Recognition of every state's right to live in peace within secure and recognized boundaries. While Resolution 242 was seen as a potential framework for peace, its vague wording led to disputes. Israel interpreted it as allowing for territorial adjustments, while Arab states demanded full withdrawal. This ambiguity hindered peace negotiations, though the resolution remained the basis for future peace treaties, including the Camp David Accords of 1978 between Israel and Egypt. Long-term geopolitical consequences. The Six-Day War permanently changed the political and military landscape of the Middle East. The occupation of the West Bank and Gaza became central to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, leading to decades of disputes over settlements, borders, and national identity. The war also demonstrated Israel's military superiority, shifting the perception of power in the region. Arab nations, realizing that conventional military confrontations were unlikely to succeed, began investing in asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, and diplomatic strategies to counter Israeli dominance. Moreover, the war's outcome laid the groundwork for future peace efforts and diplomatic relations. Although hostilities persisted, the shifting dynamics eventually led to breakthroughs, such as the Egypt-Israel Peace Treaty in 1979. In which Israel returned the Sinai Peninsula in exchange for formal recognition by Egypt, the legacy of the Six-Day War. The Six-Day War left a lasting impact on the Middle East. Israel proved its military dominance, but now had to govern occupied territories, leading to decades of conflict. Arab nations vowed revenge, leading to the Yom Kippur War of 1973. Peace efforts, such as the Camp David Accords, 1978, attempted to resolve tensions but left many disputes unresolved. The Six-Day War changed the Middle East forever, but it also sowed the seeds for new conflicts. The war may have lasted only 6 days, but its effects are still felt today. What happened in the wars that followed? How did Israel maintain its military edge? Stay tuned as we explore the next chapter in the Arab-Israeli conflicts. And if you know someone who would love diving into the past, share this video with them. Let's uncover history together.